We're going to talk about the topic of the 5 qualities of the He-Man. Who knows the first quality of the He-Man? The first quality of the He-Man, what is it? First quality of the He-Man is that he cries. Quality number 1, he cries. Okay, what's the second quality of the He-Man? He's emotional. What's the third quality of the He-Man? He reveals everything that's on his mind. What's the fourth quality of the He-Man? He listens. Patiently listens. And what is the fifth quality of the He-Man? I haven't thought of the fifth quality yet. Who can help me here? What is the fifth quality of the He-Man? We already did it. We already did that. He shares his feelings, reveals his mind, expresses his emotions, cries, and somebody help me. What's the fifth quality? All you He-Men out there, tell me, what is it? I need to know. The fifth quality of the He-Man. What?
Cooks.
He cooks! Yes! That's it. Now, you all think I'm joking, but I'm serious. What I've been dealing with lately? You don't know what a He-Man is? Rough and tough, macho man. He-Man is a macho man. Rather than a she-man, right? If a man's a she-man, then he's like a woman. But if it's a He-Man, he's like a man. He's macho, he's tough, he's strong. So, that's a He-Man. Right? You never heard the word He-Man before? Or you're asking for the other word? Sudevi, you heard the word He-Man, right?
Yeah, it was a super.
It's like a Superman.
Superman.
So, just the cartoon. The cartoon He-Man. So, men have this insecurity, so Prabhupada writes about it in the Bhagavatam. It's like, said man's ego is very big, so that ego needs to control. So he wants to control everything. But, Prabhupada's pointing out that that's the ego of the man. He wants to control, he wants to dominate. But that's, of course, the ego of the non-devotee man. But the devotee man, he's the He-Man, he's the real man, he's the tough one, who doesn't want to control. Oh, how about the He-Man? The He-Man serves everyone. How about that? The He-Man's the last one in line. How about that? So, the image of the strong man. You think about it. Right? You watch a movie, and here's the tough guy. What's the tough guy doing? He's getting all the girls, and he's killing people that are in his way. And then people think, yeah, this guy's respectable. He's tough, he's strong, and he's doing all kinds of degraded things. So this is what we're dealing with now in our society. These are the He-Man. Doesn't express himself. He's very controlling. He's very domineering. He's very intolerant of those who don't respect him. Keeps people in line. This is the He-Man. Actually, the people that we honor and the people we glorify in our society are extremely weak. They're dominated by the passions, their lower passions, and that's glorified. He can't control himself, so he's been hurt, so he gets back. He's a tough guy. Oh, that's another one. The He-Man forgives. The tough guys don't forgive, right? Somebody pushes them the wrong way, they get back. That's what all the movies are about, right? Some guy gets hurt, then he's going to retaliate. And so you have a real adventure movie going on. He's going to try to kill the guy who hurt him. That's the He-Man, right? So, you see how perverted it is? And then that carries into the consciousness of so many men. in their lives and their relationships, and so they think, well, that's what you do, you know. If you're a He-Man, that's what you do. Like we have this saying in America, like we go on Sankirtan, right? So you give a guy a book, and he goes, "This is cool," and you say, "Great, give a donation," and his wife says, "Give the book back. You don't want to read that." You ever have that situation? Maybe not in Mexico. Maybe the wives aren't like that in Mexico, but you have that in America. Give him the book back, we don't want to read that. And the guy's looking at the book and he likes it, and the wife is saying, yeah, all right. And then sometimes the devotees get agitated and they say something like, who wears the pants in the family? That's their, you know, in their frustration, right? So that's the concept. Well, you wear the pants, you're in charge, you're the boss, you make the decisions. You don't listen to anybody. Nobody tells me what to do. So this is the deck of cards that we're dealt with in our society, isn't it? This is what we're dealing with. And so many horrible relations exist because of men who think this is the model of power, when actually it's the model of weakness. Just like Gandhi said, he said, if you're not strong, you can't forgive. But people think forgiveness is a weakness, or they think humility is a weakness. He said, no, it's not a weakness. Who can actually forgive? Who's strong enough to do it? Who's strong enough to be humble? So we have everything backwards. What is the real strength? Do you realize, maybe you do, but I'll just bring this up. Do you realize how hard it is to listen to somebody? Do you realize that when you're having a conversation, most of the time, you're just thinking about what you're going to say? You realize that, Sue Devi? You're waiting for them to stop, and if they talk too much, then you're thinking, I wish they would stop talking because I want to say something. You're formulating all your ideas. And you're just waiting for them to talk so you can talk and hear yourself talk. Do you realize that in the counseling profession, psychotherapy and so forth, one of the necessary attributes is to have the ability to listen to people. And sometimes it's hard to listen because what you're listening to is not pleasant. And do you realize that even in this profession they have an extremely difficult time listening? So being open enough, being sympathetic enough, being kind enough to listen to somebody who's expressing their feelings and so forth without thinking about what you want to say. It's difficult. It's really hard. It's not something that a weak person can do. So the rowdy, so-called tough guy, he doesn't listen, he talks. He interrupts people. Right? So I was actually serious with my 5 qualities. I think we got up to 7 or 8 now. And so you may ask me, why is Mahatma talking about this? Because so often I go through, I'm asked to counsel in situations where men don't know how to be men. And this egotistic way that men tend to act in, where they're not sympathetic, where they're not kind, where they have to be overly domineering, it's not only is it not a strength, it's an immaturity. It's a sign of having not matured. So what we think is a strength is a weakness, it's also a sign of immaturity. Hare Krishna Alejandra, a.k.a. her alias is Ali Krishna. One is surrounded by Alis. Bumblebees, not butterflies. You surrounded by bumblebees, Alejandra? Maybe all the devotees can see bumblebees around you. So, we just gave a forgiveness workshop, and I quoted a writer, and I don't know who it is, but the writer said, graciousness is shown by what you don't say, even if you could say it. In other words, let's say somebody did something wrong. So you could say it, you could point it out, you're not fault-finding, it's just what happened. The graciousness is shown by what you don't say, even if you could say it. How do you like that? Does it take strength to do that? Right, so the macho tough guys, they just tell people off, right, because they're tough. Right? Does it take strength to tell people off? No. Any 6-year-old boy can do that. But it takes maturity to be able to control what you say. So what's there in our scripture? If you can control your tongue, then you're a man, then you're strong. You can conquer Krishna because you've conquered your senses. So in our society, it's like if your senses run wild, then you're like Mr. Macho, and you're the tough guy, you can star in the movie, go kill a few people, and tell a few people off, and steal somebody's wife, and drive off in the sunset, blockbuster movie, and everyone's like, yeah, that guy's the tough guy. Right? There's a verse in Bhagavatam that said, a man has 6 wives, and the senses are compared. Each sense is compared to a wife, and they're pulling him in all directions. So he's being pulled by 6 wives. So 5 senses in the mind. And then Krishna tells Yudhishthira that you can't. Nobody who can conquer their senses can conquer me. Unless you conquer your senses, you can't conquer me. So this society is so backwards, so perverted, that the real qualities of strength, which are exhibited in terms of compassion, humility, forgiveness, self-control, understanding, this requires tremendous strength. People think it's a weakness. When you express yourself, you're a weakness. It's a weakness. Look at Bhaktivinoda Thakur, completely expressed himself. I'm so this, I'm so that, I'm so this, I'm so that. That's not a weakness. Is it difficult to confront a weakness that you have? It's really difficult. If I tell me everything that's wrong with you, you think that's fun? You think that's easy? It's very difficult. If I point out a fault in you, what will you do? Most of the time you'll deny it. It's difficult to confront it. But we're learning that's what strength is. Right? So, domineering, my way or the highway, that's not strength. Everybody does that. But a devotee is supposed to be different, right? So the key word here is supposed to be. Are they different? Sometimes they are. So we trot around, calling ourselves devotee. But devotee means you're different. In the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada said, if you commit offenses to the holy name, then you don't become Krishna conscious. Then your activities won't end up looking like everyone else's activities. You won't distinguish your activities from other people's activities. That's a sign of not being Krishna conscious. Welcome. Have a seat. That's a sign of not being Krishna conscious. That the process isn't working. So if someone met you on the street, they couldn't figure out, they wouldn't think that you're any different than anybody else. And it's such a compliment when somebody meets you and that you're not dressed as a devotee. Something's different about you. You're so this, you're so that. That's a good sign. That's how it should be. Right, Benarati? They should see you and they say, you are special, you are different. Something about you is just different. Now, is it easy to become angry? Yes or yes? Very easy, right? Everybody can do it. Anybody can do it, right? You don't need practice. Everybody does it. Is it easy to control anger? No. What does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? He said even the sadhus have a difficult time. Look at Durvasa Muni. He has a difficult time controlling his anger. But so someone who can control their anger, very gentle, very peaceful, he may appear to be weak, right? but he's not weak. He's extremely strong because he can control himself, right? So when I don't know if I gave you this definition, but one of the devotees that I work with gave the definition of forgiveness as being responsible, taking responsibility for how you feel. So you may feel one way. This is how I feel. I'm upset about something. I feel. So now what? You take responsibility. Vacha vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam, adara pashta vegam. You're taking control not only of what you say, of what you taste, or any of the external senses, but you're also taking control of what you feel. Because certain feelings are not conducive to spiritual advancement. They're not conducive to good relationships. They're not conducive to accomplishing goals. So we don't always look at sense control in terms of something internal like a mood or an emotion. It takes great strength, right, Venerati? Control your emotions? It's difficult, isn't it? But a lot of people don't control their emotions, and they're adults, and they act like children, and they think they're rough and tough. But actually they're acting like kids. You'll see this all the time. This is honored and appreciated in our perverted culture, that adults who act like kids, rough and tough, and this guy's a tough guy, this guy's strong. So it's really important, especially for men, to understand what is strength. And also, women have their own strength. Their tolerance, their ability to serve, to be motherly, and then some people will make you feel, you're just a woman, you can just take care of kids, you're useless, That's another perversion of this culture, It's a sick situation. So then the women try to become like men, but they're trying to become like these he-men who are just like big kids, trying to control everyone and everything. So this is the culture we're living in, and this is what we're confronting. So this talk or this idea is very, very important, especially for men who are so programmed to misunderstand what it means to be strong, what it means to be tough, or what self-discipline means, or what sense control means. Sense control doesn't mean being tough externally. Venurati Devidasi. I think I told you about a letter that Prabhupada wrote to a man. I must have told you this. He was a rough, tough man. He was so rough and tough that he decided he would leave his wife with a 1-year-old daughter. He was a rough, tough man. And he was so rough and tough, he wanted to take sannyas, because he was rough and tough. So when you're rough and tough, you can leave a 1-year-old child and a 25-year-old wife and take sannyas, right? Because you're rough and tough. Prabhupada, as we say in ISKCON, smashed him. He smashed him. So what did he say? He said, Mr. Rough and Tough, I have something to tell you. You're causing great anxiety to your wife, Mr. Rough and Tough. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, a devotee does not cause pain to anyone. Have you not considered your actions in light of this verse? So Mr. Rough and Tough didn't think that causing pain to another living entity was really something to be concerned about, because Mr. Rough and Tough couldn't control the way he was feeling about the situation, and he wanted to get out of it. And Prabhupada said, you misunderstand, you think your Krishna consciousness depends on the situation, but it depends on you, Mr. Rough and Tough. And devotees don't do things like this. So you're not rough and tough, you're just a weakling under the control of your mind and senses in the name of thinking you're rough and tough. Because you're the big renunciate, right? You're the big renunciate, you're going to take sannyas. And really, he was not a renunciate at all. Because if he was really a renunciate, he would have renounced the desire to leave his wife because of a difficult situation. That's renunciation. You understand? It's so funny and it's so true. It's actually, you think, no, this is impossible. No man would do that. No, it was quite common. Husbands wanted to leave their wives because they felt their wives were driving them crazy. Or maybe they were experiencing that their wives were driving them crazy. So then the solution was not to change themselves. The solution was not to make things better. The solution was just leave. So Prabhupada smashed them. So that's irresponsible. It's not about your wife, it's not about your situation. It's about you, he-man. Be a he-man, don't leave. Be a tough guy, don't leave. Be a tough guy, be nice to your wife. Be a tough guy, take care of your kid. That's what it means to be a tough guy. But all the tough guys think, no, my wife's this and that, so I'm a tough guy, and so we'll just, drop the whole thing and move on. I'm saying in other situations, he gave permission. Only once. He actually never gave permission, but it's like if you write me a letter, Timothy, and say, I'm getting divorced and I seek your blessings. And I look at the letter that says, I'm getting, that means it's already happening. So if I don't give you blessings, I say, no, but you're already doing it. So what am I going to say? It's like too late. So there was a situation like that, and Prabhupada so-called gave his blessings, not blessings, he gave permission. Why? Because basically the letter said, this is what I'm doing. So it's like, well, okay. So go ahead and do it. You're already doing it. But otherwise, Prabhupada would point out this as a weakness. Not you're a rough, tough guy, you want to take sannyas, but actually you're just weak. Because you can't deal with the current situation you're in. That's the point Prabhupada was making. So we have strength and weakness really upside down, isn't it? Because we live in an upside down society. The tough guys are the weak guys, and the so-called weak guys are the tough guys. Nice guys finish last. You know that saying? What does it mean? Don't be humble, because if you're humble, people will take advantage of you. Right? And I say, well, Prabhupada was the most humble, and he came out pretty good. I think he came out on top, and he was the most humble. So, nice guys sometimes finish first. Actually, they're not nice guys that finish last. Although sometimes it looks like they finish first, but they crash because they can't stay up there because they're not nice guys. No comprehendo nada. Dice que no estás disponible en face. I don't know. I can't speak Spanish. Disponible en face. Ya me conecte ale.
I'm the translator.
You know how to speak Spanish? All right. We're getting a translator. I think they're talking to one another. I think they're all talking together. ¿Quieres que? Maybe it's por
favor. She says, do you want me to call you, Venu? And she said, yes, please, call me. Que no estás disponible en Facebook. It says that they're not available on Facebook. Where?
Oh, you're trying to translate for Venu.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think she's...
because she's not with them.
Mm-hmm.
No está ahora. Okay. For transduce me. Translation. Okay. Okay, Venu, we're going to transduce you. We're going to seduce you into translation. So, another really, really interesting thing about strength. You get this a lot if you read Mahabharata. What you find in Mahabharata is that the concept of dharma comes up all the time. About it. What is dharmic and what is adharmic? What is right action according to Shastra and what is wrong action? And they're always very careful to do what is dharmic, and that's a kind of strength. What is... It's like we said, graciousness is shown by what you could say, but you don't. And so dharma means you could do something to achieve a goal, but you don't do it if it's not dharmic. You're controlled by the injunction of Shastra. So that's another kind of strength. And, we think strength means to be free and, spontaneous, creative. You're spontaneous, you're free, you're not restricted. This is like a really cool, powerful person. No, but you see this so clearly within Mahabharata that everything is, I don't want to say restricted, but controlled by the practice of dharma. And so, Kshatriyas are the strongest and most powerful. We're talking about tough guys. These are the tough guys. And they do everything by the book, by the rule. Not by whim, because if you don't do it by the book, you're going to do it by whim. And so, whimsical people, they may be respected in our society, right? He's free, spontaneous, he's creative, but actually he's just whimsical. So there's so many wrong things that Shastra wouldn't allow in the name of being intelligent or whatever. But it's just whimsical, and whimsy is a weakness. It's like in the Gita, Krishna says, if you act whimsically, you go down, because the opposite of following dharma is whimsy, which is whatever you feel like. So strong people don't operate based on just what they feel like. They operate based on what is right. There's a big difference between what you feel like doing and what's right. So dharma means what's right. Whimsy means what do you feel like doing. You see the difference? So you get upset, the feelings overcome you. You say things that you feel like saying. You say the wrong thing. You understand? Haribo Karolina. Karo. Karotiva. Okay. It's time to do a word search for Carolina. Don't go away, folks. I'm taking a little commercial break here. And we're searching the word karo. It's 208 uses of the word karo in Prabhupada's books. Okay. This is something I was meaning to do before. Kara, producing. So karo means to produce. Aksharanam akarosmi. Kara means letter. Wow. Means to do, it means letter. What else? Ha ha karo. Ha ha karo, roaring in disappointment. Ha ha karaha. Well, karo might mean roaring. That doesn't really fit your personality, roaring. Karo. Adesha karo jitam prabhum. Adesha, according to my instruction, karo, acting. So karo, yeah, means to act. Mostly it means to act. Look at all these karos, karo. Bhagavatam, Yata Madhu Karo Buddha. Madhukara, the bumblebees, Madhukara. Yeah, Madhukara. Madhukara, Madhukara, the bumblebee. That was actually the name of the devotee that Prabhupada wrote that letter and chastised him for leaving his wife. So we won't call you Madhukara. Adeshakara, who executes the order. Yeah, so basically it means to do. Okay. We're going back. It was our commercial break, and we're back, everyone. Hare Krishna. So, so Vainarati said, this is very funny. The material world, Vainarati, is very funny. The material world is extremely weird. It's extremely upside down, or you might say backwards. And in Krishna consciousness, you want to understand, you want to see how it's backwards. Because we're so conditioned by it, it may not seem backwards. But it is backwards. And we want to appreciate, what is real strength spiritually. And we don't want to be bewildered, bamboozled by so-called material strength and then try to compete with others. Haribo Sharanagati Ashalata Tevavati Jeremy. Wow, the whole gang's here. Madhav and Vaishali, long time no see. We're talking about the real men. I don't know when you came on. We're talking about real men. The qualities of real men, of the real he-man, the powerful man. When Vibhishana was the brother of Ravana. Vibhishana told Ravana, give Sita back, and Ravana wouldn't listen. He wouldn't listen to anybody. You probably know somebody like that, right? They just get hung up on something, they want something, and they won't listen to anybody. So Ravana wouldn't listen to any advisor. Every advisor said, listen, give Sita back. If you don't, it's going to destroy your kingdom. So Vibhishana came to Ravana and said, I've come to surrender. And then, I don't know if it was Hanuman or Lakshman, he said, don't trust him. He's just spying on us. And Vibhishana said, no, I've left Ravana. I'm on your side. I take shelter of you. And then Ram said, accept him. He's surrendering to me. Accept him. That's strength. What's a strength? That means he's your enemy. It's all forgiven. He's surrendered. He's bowing down. Everything's washed off. That's strength. Isn't it? I mean, think about it. This devotee sent me some stories about devotees who did horrible things. And the reason he sent me this story was to show that Prabhupada accepted all these people. He said there's one temple president wasn't chanting his 16 rounds, and they removed him. And Prabhupada was very upset. And Prabhupada reinstated him. He said he should stay in this service. He will improve. One devotee left, temple president left with money, left with a brahmacharini. Prabhupada said, come back and engage again in your service, or some service. Now, there are many stories he sent like this, of devotees making big mistakes and Prabhupada accepting them, because that's strength. That you can deal with somebody in terms of helping them move forward. You can deal with somebody in a way that you can just kind of erase everything that happened in the past and not hold on to it. That requires strength, and Prabhupada always did that, because anyone who would surrender to him, he accepted them. Just like Ravana accepted Vibhishana. He said, he's surrendered, we accept him. Doesn't matter what he's done, we accept him. And Prabhupada was the same. Okay, whatever you did, it doesn't matter. You come back, you surrender, I accept you. That requires strength, doesn't it? Can anybody do that? No. They're saying, no, the macho man, he's going to punish you. But that's not the macho man. That's not the he-man. That's not the tough guy. The real tough guy accepts you because he's able to suppress his whatever emotions he may be feeling that are not exhibitions of compassion or not exhibitions of dharma. So he can tolerate those desires, those passions. That's the strong guy. Right? Okay, yes or no? True or true? Great or great? So we have an epidemic, I think we have an epidemic now, of men who are like little babies who are walking around like tough guys, trying to lord it over, control, be strong, because they're so insecure in themselves and their own power and their own strength, they have to, bully people. But people who are actually self-disciplined, people who actually know how to be kind and humble, they're not like that. Because they're not insecure in their own identity. They're fine being lower than a blade of grass. That's like no problem for them. But some people are not fine being lower than a blade of grass, and they have a lot of problems. And then they try to exhibit their so-called power and show off. So they can be tough guys. But actually, they're not tough guys. They're just very, very weak. Right, guys? You understand? You understand your position? Some men are, I've seen, very intolerant. Excuse me, a lot of late nights and early mornings. Some men are very intolerant of the behavior of women. They don't like the way women process things. They get very upset. Sometimes they blame them, sometimes they belittle them. Sometimes they criticize them. Is that the sign of a strong man? It might seem like it, but is it? No, it's a sign of a man who's not in control of himself. And in Kali Yuga, there are many such men wandering the streets, and there are many unfortunate women who happen to meet such big babies in the form of externally packaged as grown men, and they get connected with them, and it's a problem. It's a huge problem. And that's Mahatma's opinion. And Mahatma has spoken, and now he's going to let you ask questions. I've chastised the men enough. The chastisement is over. The men are big babies, big tough guys, but they're just big babies. So many of them, right? And they can't handle situations. They're just big babies. What do you think of that? Did I think it's true? You understand? Then the men go, but Prabhu, aren't we supposed to be like in charge and control? Yeah, you're supposed to be in charge and in control of your mind and senses. Yes! You're not supposed to be in charge and control of other people. You're supposed to be in charge and control of your own mind and senses. How did Prabhupada motivate people? Did he motivate people by yelling at them? No. Did he motivate them by chastising them? Sometimes, but that was the exception. How did he motivate them? Right? By affection. Right? Mostly by affection. They didn't walk around with a cane and beat people in the head. Right? That's what we're talking about. No, but I'm supposed to be in charge. I'm the man. I'm supposed to control. So look at how your spiritual master controlled. He controlled with affection. Look at the power Prabhupada had. Anybody would do anything he asked, right? Whatever he asked, they would do. But how did he ask them? Maybe, perhaps you'd like to do this. It would be nice if you could do this. That's how he asked. He didn't walk around with a whip. And Prabhupada didn't like to criticize his disciples. He said it was a thankless task. He said, but he had to do it because if he didn't, then they might be spoiled. But it was not like, okay, I'm the big tough guy, so I'm going to go around criticizing everybody because that's what tough guys do. He was very reluctant to do that. Isn't that interesting? He had all the power and control, and he could do that, and he was reluctant to do it because that was his strength. His strength was that he could be in such a dominant position and see himself as a servant. How difficult is that? How much strength does that require? You have the power, you have the right, just like in Vedic, in the ideal Vedic system, and the wife's very submissive, and the husband's like the guru, right? And then the husband is, it said, the wife should just do what the husband wants. That's the Vedic system, right? So he has, so in a sense, he has a right to tell her anything he wants. You do this, you do that. He has the right to be the slave driver. But that's not what it means. It means really that he becomes the servant. Even though he has the right in a sense, but he becomes the servant. That's the right attitude, So that was Prabhupada's position. He had the right to make us all his slaves. We would do anything. But what was his position? Staying up all night writing books for who? For us. He was serving us. That's the person who's strong, who has the power to say and do anything, and he becomes the servant of everyone, who on a drop of a hat would do whatever he says. That's power. So men get this wrong idea because they're given this position of power, but they don't understand what it means and they misuse it. Think, I'm in charge, so everyone has to do what I say. That's not the way. It's not right. I'm in charge, so now, what does that mean? I facilitate, I help, I support. That's what it means. That's strength. I show affection, I show encouragement. That's strength. Not that you wield a weapon and yell and scream and beat people on the head. It's like, yeah, I'm a tough guy. I got everybody in line. Like you see, life is not like the military where you scream in people's faces because you're a tough guy. That's not what Krishna consciousness is about. Is it? Tough guys are the ones who have control of their senses when they're in difficult situations. Those are the tough guys. Right? Yes, I am right. You better say I'm right or I won't like you. I'll get mad at you and I'll chastise you. Maybe I won't let you come on my next show if you don't agree with me. You ever see how kids deal with one another when they get upset? They play favorites and like that. You ever see adults do that? Yes, they do it. What does that mean? It means they're weak. Right? So as devotees, we need to understand what it means to be strong. And men, it's very important that your real strength, the real strength of a man is his affection. The real strength of any of us is our affection. Not our power to control, but our power to show affection and encouragement. You probably all realize that sometimes it's hard to give encouragement because sometimes we don't appreciate what people do. So, but that's strength, to always be a person who gives encouragement, isn't it? Because it's not always easy. Always be it's like, could you imagine, Prabhupada being in a bad mood. He comes to give Bhagavatam class and he's like, I'm in a bad mood today. And you'd be thinking, what's going on here? I don't want to give class. You're all useless. I hate you. I don't want to see your ugly face. Could you imagine, right? It's unthinkable, right? But how many people are like that? Right? They get upset. I don't want to talk to you. Don't talk to me. You bother me. I don't want this. That's what little kids do. And as adults, we do that. So the person who can control his emotions so that he can function and optimal consciousness, optimal action at any time. That's a strong person, not one who's being pushed around by every little motion and mood swing. You want to hear something interesting? This is amazing. I don't even know if I should tell you. It's so amazing. You don't deserve to hear it. I don't know. I have to think about it. Maybe I don't know. Should I tell you? This is incredible. This is incredible. I was in Los Angeles when Prabhupada was there. 1972. I think he spent 3 months there. I was probably there the whole time he was there. Maybe it was 72, maybe it was 70. I was there in 70 also. So, Prabhupada's there in the temple every day. He's giving class, leading kirtan. Everything is blissful as it always is with Prabhupada. Everyone's ecstatic. Prabhupada's inspiring everybody. Everything's wonderful. You see, Prabhupada, big grin, big smile. He's enthusiastic, pushing and support behind us all. So maybe sometime in the mid-80s, I read the Lilamrita. I read the Lilamrita. And in the Lilamrita, it describes that time when I was in LA, and it describes that Prabhupada was going through a very anxiety-ridden time because there was fear that some people who were envious of him were trying to undermine the movement, and there was a serious concern of his, and he saw that his disciples were being affected by this, by the propaganda and I'm not sure exactly, propaganda against him, what he would call the poison against him that had entered the movement and was affecting his disciples. And it was a real, in his mind, Prabhupada felt, this is a serious threat to the movement. We're like a little baby, we're a little seedling, little creeper, and this is like serious threat. That's how Prabhupada perceived it. It was a very serious thing. So I'm reading this, and I'm reading like the immense concern Prabhupada had. It was such a concern that he felt it had come to the point that his disciples were being influenced by others to commit offenses to him. And he decided he was going to go to India to get away from his disciples so they couldn't commit offense. It was like that bad, right? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Prabhupada's leaving America to go to India to get away from his own disciples out of fear that they'll commit offense. And they'll ruin their spiritual lives, and it'll ruin the whole movement. Right? So I'm reading this, and I'm thinking, I was there. I had no idea that was going on. There was nothing in Prabhupada's actions or presence, countenance, consciousness that in any way indicated that this was going on. I was shocked when I read it, and I thought to myself, I have no idea. Prabhupada did not show any of this. When Timothy says, if I'm ever like that, please smack me. No, your wife will smack you. Carl will smack you. Don't worry. That's what wives are for. So, Carl, if he ever gets out of line, smack him. And tell him it's from Mahatma. So, I was so amazed that there was no sign that Prabhupada was like that. And you look at any of Prabhupada's videos, Prabhupada's very blissful. He's very encouraging, he's very dynamic, very enthusiastic. You know. But it didn't mean that behind the scenes everything was like really good. Sometimes it was very difficult. It might have been that day Prabhupada got a letter that one of his senior men had left. One of his GBC men had fallen down with some brahmacharini. These things were happening all the time. So what is the strength of Prabhupada? That he could go on, right? He could go on without being affected by these things. Not being carried away. So obviously he was feeling concern, there was disturbance. But externally, he could deal with it. And you know how people, when they get disturbed, they take it out on other people? It's never like that, ever. So we have a question here. My question is, have the women fault that the men be machos and be like you have told? Is it our fault? Oh, good question. Okay, Sudevi, what's the answer to that question? Is it the woman's fault that the men are macho?
That men are macho?
That they feel like they have to be domineering, controlling, to the point of being obnoxious?
No.
You think it's women's fault?
I don't think so, but maybe
Sudevi says no. Definitely not. Of course. Women have a lot of Shakti. They can mess things up also. Some people have told me it is our fault because we are very emotional and crazy. Yeah. So this is a very good point, Vainarati, because this addresses exactly what I'm saying. The people who tell you that are those weak men, insecure. They don't know how to deal with your emotional state, so they tell you you're crazy. Right? I mean, I don't want you to find fault with all of them, but it's their weakness, because they don't know how to deal with you. And so, anytime somebody blames another person for something, maybe not any time, but most times, it means they can't handle it, so they have to blame somebody. And by blaming someone, it explains to them and their rationale in their mind what the problem is, because they don't want to realize that they're creating the problem. You know, I mentioned several times before, there's a saying, whenever you had an argument, you were there. So what does that mean? What it's saying is that every time there's some friction or anything, there's two people in it. So when somebody wants to blame the other person, they're not taking responsibility for the fact that they were engaged in the problem, right? So, you know, women need to understand men's mentality and deal with it. For sure, there's no question. But for a man to blame a woman on how he feels and his problems and so forth, just because a woman's being like a woman, is wrong. It's bad. And don't believe it. It's not true. Don't buy it. You women are very emotional, all right. So, women are very emotional and crazy. Ooh, that's a compliment, if I ever heard one. It sounds like a frustrated man would say such a thing. Don't you think? You think like a nice, sense-controlled, kind, compassionate man would go up to women and say, you know, the problem is you guys are too emotional and crazy, and just cool it, get it together, come down to earth and stop being crazy, all right? You got it? You understand? You get my point, Vainarati? You exasperate them. Yeah, sometimes you do. You can. But you won't exasperate a good man. No, because they don't know how to handle it. That's the problem. You are what you are. Yeah, you can be better. You can be better. You are what you are, and you can be better. Right? No question. You can be kinder. You can be more compassionate. You can be more controlled. You can be all these things also. And you should try to be as best you can. But blame is something that we want to try to avoid, both men and women. Because blame is a weakness. Blame is a weakness. Blame means you can't take control of the situation. That's what it means. So whenever you're blaming or someone's blaming you, it means they can't take control of the situation. You understand? Does that make sense? Okay. You may not be perfect. You may not be perfect, but, and you can be better, but sometimes you're just being yourself, and that's not going to be good enough for somebody. And that's more their problem than yours. But you do what you can. You understand what's proper behavior, what's respectful, and so forth. Now, any other questions? Arguments or answers? I mean, The thing is, it's nice to think that when something's wrong, it's your fault, but the problem is sometimes it's not. You can go crazy thinking it's your fault when it isn't, because you can't rectify the situation when it's not your fault and you're made to think it is, and then you become psychotic, and you're made to think you're really bad and this and that. You see what I'm talking about? So, does that make sense? So it's like, there's like two sides, it's a balanced thing. There's a problem. Prabhupada said, yeah, it's nice to think it's your fault, but what if it isn't? And you get in this psychotic, neurotic condition where you're always thinking it's your fault when it's not, and someone's just blaming you for it. I was just in this situation today where this husband is blaming his wife for everything, and she's lost all her self-esteem, you see? Now, if she didn't believe it, if she said, no, it's not my fault, you did this, she'd probably be psychologically a lot better off right now. But she went along with it thinking, oh yeah, it must be my fault, all the problems are my fault, that's what he's saying. And then she just went crazy. You see? You understand? So, it's like I say, we should be tolerant, but there's a threshold where we should not be tolerant, because if we tolerate things which are damaging to us materially or spiritually, that would be stupid, right? So in the same way, we should feel we're at fault, but we shouldn't tolerate abuse, tolerate a situation where we're being abused psychologically. Oh, it's my fault, I'm so bad, I do everything wrong, and then you become crazy. And I don't think we should tolerate people doing that to us. I don't think it's right. And if you tolerate it, you're going to allow people to do it, you'll end up a mess, I think. So you see there's a balance there between what's your fault, what isn't, and how you could rectify a situation. Sometimes you may take that humble position just because it'll rectify the situation. You know what I mean? You say, okay, I know I'm not at fault, but I'm going to say this because this other person can't see it any other way. So the simplest thing is say, okay, whatever, I'm sorry. But don't allow it to psychologically damage you and think, yeah, I do everything wrong and everything they say about me is true, and then you come out like a vegetable. You can't think straight. So that's not good. Right? You understand? See or no? Do you understand? Okay. So, we are going to have another class now. Isn't that interesting? So we're going to have to end here. Is that okay? Oh my God. My batteries went dead. I'm so depressed. Okay? So maybe to be so expressive is not good. Well, it depends who you're expressing it to. That's another thing. Another class, we have guests here. They're coming right now in the room, and we're going to have a class. I can turn off and turn on again. That way it'll record separately if you want to attend the class. Probably like questions and answers, something like that. So let me turn off, and then when everybody comes, well, we're going to have kirtan first. So anyway, okay. Let me just turn this off because it's recording on my computer, and then it'll record a second. Okay? Is that all right? So, yeah, we're going to just hang around, and then I'll go back on when everybody's here, and we'll do kirtan. I mean, you can ask more questions because we're still waiting. I'll let you ask a few more questions if you have any. If not, then I'll go off. There's this. I think it's an important point because it's like everywhere you look in Shastra, it's going to say be tolerant, but there are things you shouldn't tolerate. So there's two sides of it. Just like everywhere in Shastra it says don't get angry, but there's a kind of anger which actually empowers you, because it'll empower you to do something good. You're angry at injustice and you want to make the world better, and so that anger motivates you to do something good. So there's always these two opposites. So it's not like intolerance is absolutely bad and tolerance is absolutely good in every situation, or anger is absolutely bad or absolutely good. It depends on what's the motive behind it, because like in bhakti, everything's about motive. So you can say someone in the mode of passion is doing the same thing as someone in the mode of goodness, but the motive is completely different. The person in passion is doing it because they want to, and the person in goodness is doing it because it's the right thing. So you say, should I do this? Yeah, you should do it for the right reason. If you do it for the wrong reason, then it's the wrong action, even though it's the same action someone else does, because they're doing it for the right reason. So you have to have this balance. Does that make sense? Makes sense to me. I don't know about you. Yes, makes sense to Karo. Karo is the maker. So it must make sense to Karo. Okay. All right, so we're going to stop here and I will come back later.